Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface with a long-awaited edition of AzChats. Now normally, especially if you're new to an AzChats video, I would advise you to simply crank up the volume in the background because AzChats is a feast for your ears as opposed to your eyes. But today is slightly different, because I'm going to be discussing my thoughts and feelings on The Elder Scrolls Online. Now that the NDA has been released and we had this closed beta at the weekend where I could stream and now do videos and screenshots and all this kind of stuff. So there's going to be plenty of eye candy for your eyes, as well, of course, as my warm palms sumptuously caressing your ear holes. So if you do want to just crank up the volume in the background and get on with whatever you need to do, I don't know, impregnating the hired help, banging the yoga instructor, you go right ahead, you go do that. But if you want to sit at your computer desk and also be entertained visually, where you've got plenty of eye candy for you to look at. Now, first things first, before I jump straight in to my discussion, thoughts and feelings on what I feel about Elder Scrolls Online, whether I believe it's going to be a success or not, I need to give you some background story, as I always do with AzChats videos. And I'm very personal, as you know, I'm a very personal person. I don't give a lot out about myself, and ever so, you know, in certain instances, I feel that I need to, and I play certain elements of my life down, or I twist them for entertainment purposes on my channel or my streams, and I've got to confess, I have actually been in a committed relationship for the last 12 years. I know, I always go on about, oh, woe is me, but yeah, I've actually been in a committed relationship for about 12 years, maybe 13, maybe 14. He's around about then anyway. It's been a while. They're gonna have to forgive me if I have forgotten the exact date. Oops. But just to make you aware, my committed relationship is with a beautiful person called Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls, if I'm going to be pedantic, but they don't mind if I just dump the from the beginning. And we first met in game video store in, I think it was Halifax, West Yorkshire, about 12, 14 years ago. And I was perusing the shelves for a game to play on my brand new Xbox, which I was really excited to have. And then suddenly I saw her there on the shelf, and it was Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And if you know anything about me, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, then you'll know that my love for gaming, the RPG element came way, way, way before the MMO. I play a lot of MMORPGs now, but back in there, my whole love of video games stemmed from RPGs. And I played some amazing RPGs back in there, back in days, with Shining Forces and Phantasy Stars and Final Fantasies, and there's more. There's lots more. But let's just use them as the sort of litmus paper, the base, the benchmark for the purposes of this video. So I was spoilt by some exceedingly well made, well produced, and storylines which were fantastic. Very linear games, but my goodness, they were worth the entertainment and then some. Final Fantasy VII kind of breaking away from that, but if you wanted to do the storyline, then it's all a very linear process. And because I just got my Xbox and I was desperate for an RPG to play, because I would much rather sink 40 odd pounds of my money into a game which I was going to spend tens upon tens of hours playing, than one which could be over in 6 or 7 hours. And that was one of my reasonings for getting into RPGs, and it just turned out it worked for me. It worked for me. And so I looked at the back of the box for Morrowind, and it just looked staggeringly beautiful. And I thought, oh my god, I've got to have this. I've got to have this game. Never came out for the PS2, just for the Xbox. It was an Xbox exclusive and also the PC, but console exclusive. And I took it home. I took Elder Scrolls Online. I took Elder Scrolls 3 home with me, Morrowind, and our relationship began. And ever since then, I have been in this committed relationship with the Elder Scrolls franchise. I absolutely adore it. And I don't know how many hundreds of hours, like I'll quite happily probably say hundreds of hours, I sank into Morrowind. But it was a colossal amount. But not only that, I was greeted by something I'd never ever experienced before when it came to RPGs. And that was freedom. Not Mel Gibson anti-Semitic Braveheart freedom. No. I'm talking about legitimate, genuine, wholehearted gaming freedom. As just mentioned, I was used to playing these Japanese RPGs, which had great stories. I love being told a story. Adore being told a story. Doesn't matter if it's an RPG, an action RPG, an action game, anything. You know, as long as the story's good, Tomb Raider, Drake's Fortune, Splinter Cell. As long as the stories are captivating, I'm there. You've got me. You've got me wholeheartedly. And I've been very used to like this linear pathway going through these RPGs. But now, I start off this game, Morrowind, and I get off the boat, where I'm a prisoner. We're always a prisoner, remember? Always start an Elder Scrolls game as a prisoner. I think it's a running joke, but I like it. It's a great joke. And you get off the boat at the beginning, and they're like, right, you can go over here if you want, or you can do whatever the hell you want. And it's like, what? You can follow the storyline, should you wish to, or you can just go out and explore. Just do whatever you feel comes naturally to you as a gamer. And not only that, you got to play the game exactly how you wanted to behave in the game. None of this Fable nonsense, you know. Molyneux, look, all best intentions and stuff, but the Fable games, the morality side of the Fable games was so pathetically flawed. You know, I can remember in Fable 1, you like find a coin on the floor that somebody's dropped. Do you want to hand it in to the old lady or not? No, I think I'll keep this 2-bob piece. You're now the devil! And you're scarred everywhere, and you're the most evil force in the universe because you never gave the old granny her penny back. You know, it's kind of like that. It was just ridiculous. It's like, what? You know, there was black and white. There was no shades of grey. There was no mitigating circumstances. It's very predetermined and a little bit of nonsense. Not with Elder Scrolls. This game had one morality system. You. You as the player with the morality system. You could break into anybody's house. You could steal anything which could pretty much move. You could always lift the tables from the floors and walk out with them if they let you. But anything, cutlery, mugs, gems, weaponry, clothing, you could literally steal the clothes off their back. Whatever you wanted to do in an Elder Scrolls game, it gave you that freedom. It was absolutely fantastic. So it didn't judge you. It didn't say, oh, naughty you for stealing that, naughty you for nicking that cabbage. You're now the evil beast for the rest of eternity. No. It didn't judge you at all. It just said, look, you do what you need to do in this game. And it almost encouraged you to be as imaginative as possible with how you wish to play the game. And it was just outstanding. Just outstanding. And on top of all of that, you got to choose how you played weapon-wise. Were you a two-handed beast? Were you sword and board? Were you a sorcerer? You could go through all these determinations as well. Whether or not you're wearing big, thick, heavy armour, leather armour, sneaky, weaky. Whether you're going around in cloth and dresses as a guy. I dress in a dress all the time. I'm a warlock and I feel liberated. There's a draft which goes up the skirt We don't need to get into that right now. Needless to say, you can wear whatever you wanted to wear. You could wield whatever you wanted to wield. You could go round as a spellcaster in heavy armour and go, hey, hey, hey. Entirely up to you. Decisions were yours to make. And oh my giddy aunt, they were fantastic. So, is it any wonder that I decided to enter this committed relationship with the Elder Scrolls? And it only got better and better. A few years later, when the Xbox gave way to the Xbox 360, we then got the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And we saw the likes of Sir Paddy Stewart and Sean Bean lend their phenomenal acting talent to the cast. And the game again was just huge, and you had the freedom once more, and sorry, I'm having an asgasm. And then of course we get Skyrim later on, and the development between Oblivion and Skyrim was absolutely colossal. And this is what you can see on the screen now. This is what you've been watching so far, is me wandering around Skyrim. I'm technically actually in Morrowind at the moment. This is the add-on pack for it. But it's when I came across Skyrim for the first time, and it was released on the 11th of the 11th, 11/11/11, and just the refinements that they'd done to the game, I was hooked. I literally booked a week off work. True, maybe sad, I don't care. I booked a week off work purely for Skyrim action. I was going to rim that sky as much as I could in a week. And all I remember is there was copious amounts of fast food consumed. There was little sleep to be had. And there was a colossal amount of hours put into that game in that week. And even when I went back to work, I would finish work, go back home, and I'd just be straight onto Skyrim, play. So Bethesda had done this just phenomenal job with the single player open world RPGs, just staggeringly good. But there was a question mark which always loomed, and that question mark, of course, was: are we going to get multiplayer? We thought we might get it in Skyrim, but alas, it wasn't to be. And that was a colossal shame, because if ever a game would have been enhanced by, even if it was just having one other person play with you, then Skyrim was that game. Oh my goodness, Skyrim was that game. And even if it was maybe 1 or 2 or 3, so you could have a maximum party of about 4 odd people online with something like Skyrim, that just would have been the ultimate for me. You could have role-played with your mates, you know? You could have all put your druid robes on and cracked out your Dungeons and Dragon dice and just all hovered around your PCs and had an absolute gay old time. It would have been outstanding. Even just one. If they'd just given us one other person to play with, it would have tipped it. Would have tipped it into God knows what. But it would have been unbelievable. And then we got the announcement, of course, that there was an Elder Scrolls online game in the works. But this was the but which always had me a little bit. It wasn't going to be Bethesda that made it. No, it was going to be ZeniMax that made it, not Bethesda. Now, I'm not wailing on ZeniMax because they're not Bethesda. But it's always a slight worry when you have a franchise, a beloved, excusez-moi, I need to put that beloved in front of there. When you have a beloved franchise which has been made by a company for so many years, going all the way back to the Elder Scrolls Arena, and then suddenly, when you're doing something as important as the onlining of it, putting the MMO into Elder Scrolls, handing the reins over to another company, it's a massive leap of faith, and one which has got to be taken not lightly at all. because your reputation, your franchise's reputation is on the line. Because all the good work that you may have done with all the single-player Elder Scrolls games, would they come crashing down with the MMO aspect of it? Would the other Elder Scrolls game be tainted by that brush if it didn't live up to the hype? But if it did, of course, then it would only go to exponentially enhance the Elder Scrolls, well, let's say dynasty. Yeah, let's just go there. The Elder Scrolls dynasty, or dynasty, if you're married. Although, why would you want a dynasty? I don't know, but there we go. Okay, so let's move on to the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, those of you that think that because you've played an Elder Scrolls game before, you're going to slip into the Elder Scrolls Online with ease, you got to think again. Because there is one massive difference between the two. If you play Elder Scrolls games in third person, you're almost hampering yourself. Whereas if you play it in the first person, you get the most out of it. This is the complete role reversal. If you try and play Elder Scrolls Online as a first person game, you're going to put yourself at a colossal disadvantage. You cut off all your peripheral vision. Your hands don't show, which they do in the regular Elder Scrolls game. You'll see your weapons, and when you slash your weapons, but it does cut off your field of view substantially. And when you're in combat with things, and combat can sometimes be very tricky to discern when you're actually in combat and when you're not, when something aggroes you. It might be a while before you realise that that's actually happened. There's no massive woo woo woo, you know, bells and whistles which say, "Oi up, you're in combat here." Then you're going to be in trouble. You've got to really play this game in third person. So although you can slip into first person mode, it doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all. It's only going to hamper you in the long run. So you're automatically playing this MMO RPG as any other. Okay, they're all third person, so it's not a huge one for me. I can get over that. That's fine. I love to play Elder Scrolls in first person. I can understand if they want me to play Elder Scrolls Online in third person, even if they pretend that you can also do it in first person. But so I'll go along with that. Okay, I will go along with that. But what I just couldn't understand with this, and I couldn't wrap my head around, and it, if you certainly watched my streams over the weekend, drove me insane, was the horrible and absolute, and I mean horrible, control system with keyboard mouse. I found it just awful. Absolutely awful. I mean, just little things like that. Trying to go up to the poster, you just can't line yourself up properly and things like that. You've got to tweak and you turn the mouse to get yourself right because you're using a couple of keys in the mouse to wiggle yourself all around. And it just felt so clumsy. So I thought, okay, alright, that's fair enough. Some games do come off that way, but you can always fall back to pad support because this game's going to be coming out not just on a PC, but later on the Xbox One and also the PlayStation 4. So let's just jump to pad support. Nope. No, they are not. ZeniMax are not allowing pad support. They're not enabling themselves anyway, pad support for the PC. What? No, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever because the game itself is clearly being designed to incorporate the console marketplace. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that because that's one of the audiences which you want to tap. So you can only use 5 abilities at a time. When it comes to putting these abilities onto a pad and the other such abilities, just walking abilities, movement abilities, interaction abilities, communication abilities, they're going to all fit onto the pad. So why, oh why, can't we utilise a pad in the PC version as well? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I must have thrown in over 30 hours of gameplay this weekend. Absolutely battered it. I streamed for humongous amounts of time, and then even when I stopped streaming, just to give myself some peace and quiet, to relax, to recharge, I still carried on playing the game. Still carried on playing. And even after 30 plus hours of doing this, I was still ranting and raving about how awful, how absolutely awful the control system felt, how clunky it felt. Didn't feel organic, didn't feel natural. I always felt as if I was fighting the control system. And that's the worst thing for me. Especially when I just bring any other MMO into the equation. I could be talking now about Star Wars, The Old Republic. I could be talking about World of Warcraft. I could be talking about Final Fantasy XIV. And I tell you what, none of those games that I've just mentioned there, would I even be contemplating talking about the movement structure and the interaction structure of those games, because they are so natural. So you just don't think about it. That is how you make an MMO. That's how you get the fundamental aspects of an MMO correct. You get a good, solid movement interaction system, so the player doesn't even know that they're doing it. They are just doing it. Everything's very responsive. Everything like that just fits like a glove. Like a glove. But no, this absolutely drove me crazy. And watching it, it may seem relatively smooth. And watching it back, it does feel that way. But when you're playing it, oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no. I just found it so awkward and so clunky and so clumsy. And that really frustrated me, because there are so many good elements to this game. I mean, first things first, you can see from the footage which I'm putting out here, it is gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous beyond belief. Really is. I don't think I've seen a nicer looking MMO. This is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful looking MMO. And I'm talking not just about the architecture, I'm talking about the spell effects, the fire effects, the combat effects, soul shards, sky shards or whatever they're called, that you can grab as well. There are just the lighting, the textures, it's everything. Everything aesthetically to do with this game is simply divine, and it's just an absolute joy to look at. At the very beginning, when I was running up the stairs to the city and we saw the sun coming in over the battlements, oh, it just looked beautiful. But a game's got to have more to it than just good looks, you know? A woman, a guy can be really pretty or really handsome, but if there's nothing going on in the cranium, they get very boring very quickly. So what else do we have within the Elder Scrolls that can grab that attention? Well, the combat system is quite basic, but at the same time has a hefty amount of customization. You get to choose 5 abilities, one of them being an ultimate move. And you do get, though, to choose more than 5 abilities on your leveling up journey. So it all depends on how you want to customize. What different types of abilities do you want for your class? You can also decide what types of armor you wear, whether it be light armor, medium armor, or heavy armor. You can enchant them accordingly, so you can still wear heavy, strong armor as a spellcaster if you so desire. You can then enchant them to get more magicka or whatever else that you need. But, and here's the but, if you do go down that avenue and you do start to put points into your armor system, then you're not going to get the benefit of what a light armor would be. Okay, so it's the same if you're in a rogue type of a class and you don't go with your medium armors as well, you kind of miss out on some abilities there. So you have to look at that as the trade-off. Yes, you get a lot more protection by it, but in the same breath, you're actually going to miss out on mana pools, damages, things like that as well. So, but on the positive side, that's for you to decide. That is absolutely 100% for you to decide. One thing that I liked about the Sorcerer class was the fact that depending on what staff you equipped, actually changed some of the spells that you used. So if I had a flame staff on, some of my abilities would turn into fire. We saw it a little bit earlier, me blowing people up with walls of fire on the floor and punching them back into the fire and all this kind of stuff. But if I changed to an ice staff, those abilities would change. If I changed to a lightning staff, again, if I changed to a poison staff, which is what I've got here, then it defaults back to lightning because I'm a stormcaller. So those sort of levels of customization are really good. It's just such a shame I was always feeling as if I was fighting the control system. Now, I went off and downloaded Pinnacle. If you don't know what Pinnacle is, it's a bit of software that enables you to use a pad with various games, and you can map keys to your gamepad that you want to use, as long as it recognises the game. You could, and to be honest with you, it recognises virtually every game out there, so it's not something that would be too difficult to do. And I actually went off stream after being ready to explode due to the horrible control system, downloaded Pinnacle, started to put my keybinds on, loaded back up the game, and it felt like a different animal. It felt like an absolutely different animal. So I go back to why, oh why can't we use a pad? Also, what I found very bizarre was the progression curve. If you were rocking around with a two-handed weapon, the chances are you had a really good experience during the beta. But if you decided to go to a spellcasting class, then things got way trickier. You started off for your first 4 or 5 levels feeling really powerful, and then suddenly, boom! It was as if you hit an unbelievable mountainside of progression curve. And suddenly your spells which were doing damage were doing no damage, or hardly any damage whatsoever to whatever you're attacking. You try and tackle more than one creature at a time, good night Vienna. You would just get absolutely annihilated. If you're in your cloth armor, if you're in your light armor, you were getting absolutely squished. And I had some very interesting conversations with people in my stream. Some of the spellcasters there were saying, look, I just went for heavy armor. I just went to Battle Mage because I simply couldn't cope as a light armor wearer. So there does seem to be some colossal imbalances when it comes to these things. And these are game breaking, and these absolutely need to be addressed. It's all well and good having a progression curve, and I'm all for tough content, but you've got to feel as if you're not fighting against your class. I was firing off 3 or 4 spells, and wow, all my magicka, all my magic, gone. I was then having to rely on my staff, and if my staff had been drained of all its extra ability, I was just doing basic staff maneuvers. It felt really awful, and I got myself up to about level 10, and then ended up just saying, do you know, I'm going to put this sorcerer to one side for now. I got myself a couple of level 10 bits of gear, but it just got a little bit too much. It was just like, I can barely survive. Absolutely barely survive. So there has to be a more there has to be a more consistent progression curve when it actually comes to the development of your characters. Something, like I said, that the two-handed classes just never seem to worry about. They seem to be crushing through everything at ease. And the amount of people that we saw in the chat during the course of the stream that I read was in the chat that were going, this is awful as this class, this is awful as that class. And then suddenly you were getting your two-handeds going, well, we just breezed through it. And it's just like, oh god, no. You've got to get your class balances right, especially when you've got the PvP element to this game. Otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of people running around with two-handed maces, two-handed axes, two-handed swords, and this game is going to get very dull very quickly because it's actually going to stifle the creativity and the customization which is being made available for it. So let's balance things again. So with the downside, let's go back to an upside. And the crafting system seemed to be pretty cool. You started off having any profession that you wanted. You didn't have to bottleneck yourself. You didn't have to have a limited choice as to which you chose. You could do mining straight away. You could do clothier straight away. Alchemy. Blacksmithing. Woodworking. You could just do everything straight away. All you needed to do was collect the materials. And something that was rather cool is depending on what race and what items you found, you could actually craft the same strength pieces of gear, but in the styles of the other races. So I could be running around here as a dark elf, but I much prefer the look of the Argonian armour. So as long as I had the right metal, the right Argonian metal, then I'd be able to craft it, and that would be absolutely fine. And I could rock around as my dark elf in my Argonian gear, or my Nord gear, or my Imperial gear, etc, etc, etc. And that was really cool. And also, of course, you can then chop and change a little bit of sort of transmog-esque, so to speak, because you could put in some different styles, a little bit of Dark Elf, a little bit of Argonian, a little bit of Khajiit, and all that kind of stuff, and gain yourself a very specific look, and that in itself was rather cool. But then you got to the point where you wanted to leave the professions, or leave talking to somebody, and the game froze you in the conversation screens. And the only way that you could break out of that was either to reload your UI or to log out of the game completely and log back in. And I have to talk about bugs. Now, I've got to be very careful when discussing bugs in a beta, because beta is beta. I absolutely 100% understand that. I conduct a lot of beta tests, a lot. I am a very, very forgiving person when it comes to things like bugs and tweaks that need to be ironed out. Absolutely forgiving all day long. EverQuest Next Landmark has them in the droves. I don't mind saying that, but they're all being ironed out bit by bit, and the game itself, EverQuest Next Landmark, is phenomenal. It's a great, great experience, a great building tool, oodles of fun, and everything is just getting tweaked every now and again. That is in alpha. This is in beta, and not only is it in beta, but it's coming out in 25 days' time if you've got early access. That's just over 3 weeks. Now, I saw some arguments on the internet about the bugs in this game, and they are absolutely saturated full of them. And somebody was saying, yes, but we're only coming on to do the stress testing, and that's it, and things are always going to fall apart. Loading screens are going to be colossal, which they are at the minute. I've edited every single loading screen in this game, because they're about 45 seconds a piece. But I don't mind that. That's not my issue. And they're saying, and if the game crashes, it's stress testing. I haven't got a problem with that whatsoever. Fully understand what stress testing is. And they're saying, and all these bugs are probably brought around because of the stress testing, and therefore it's absolutely fine. Wrong! Wrong! Wrong, 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 wrong. These bugs are not brought about by stress testing, and if, as these people are kind of intimating, that all that we're doing is the stress testing, and there is a proper group of people that are testing the client on another server, or testing the client all through a continual process, and therefore we're only getting a kind of like, not half finished, but, you know, semi-finished version of the game. Wrong. Because that's not how you conduct stress testing. You cannot conduct stress testing without having the latest build of your game, because you need to understand how the game holds up to the stress full stop. So if you're not using the latest build and the latest developed build of your game when you're doing stress testing, you generally don't know what the stress test might actually do to other criteria within the game. So I don't buy that for one single solitary second. This game is going to come out absolutely saturated full of bugs, because they are massive. We've already talked about the conversation one and the one that you're doing with the professions. There were so many quests which I literally could not do during the course of the beta. There was 4 in one day, and it was simply because the quest bugged out. Now, I don't mind whatsoever if they cut the storyline off. That's cool. You know, if they don't want to give away the storyline, absolutely cool. I respect that. I understand that. You know, fair dues. And they cut you off at level 10 and you couldn't progress the storyline any further. But the amount of times you'd actually go into something and try and do it, bug. Going to do something else, bug. Go to speak to somebody, bug. There were just so many aspects of the game. Try to interact with something, bug. They were just absolutely everywhere. And because the game is coming out in 25 days' time, you've got to say, is the PC crew that's going to buy this, because it's not coming out on consoles in 25 days, only PC. The console launches are going to follow 2 or 3 months later. To me, it feels like the PC crew are going to actually act as beta testers, even though they've paid to play the game. So they're going to buy the game. It's going to be riddled with these bugs, and there are a lot of them. And, you know, they're going to try and sort them out, those bugs, while the people are playing the game, and then adjust it so when the console launches come around, it's going to be a little bit smoother. So I do feel, sadly for the PC crew, as if you're going to be used as guinea pigs. I sort of refer to you away from myself, because I'm in a colossal amount of doubt at the moment with the control system, with them not enabling the pad facility for the PC gamers, which I still do not understand. For the life of me, do not understand. The bugs within the game, the ridiculous curve, if you want to have anything other than a two-handed Smash merchant. I don't know whether or not I genuinely want to play this game on a PC anymore. And I love Elder Scrolls. I really want to play this game. I really want to support this game. It looks gorgeous. They've got some great ideas involved here. The stories and the quests are brilliant. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Fantastic voice acting. Very engaging. Very immersive. And I really, really want to play this game. But I don't want to play a bug-ridden, awful, horrible, controlled, unbalanced MMORPG. I don't want to do that. So I'm in a predicament here. I've got 25 days to think on whether or not I should cancel my pre-order for the PC, and maybe decide which one of the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 I'll buy the game on when it eventually comes out for those. Because I want this game to do well. I really do. ZeniMax, I desperately do. I really do. Elder Scrolls means so much to me. It's this 12-year, this decade plus VAT long relationship that I've had with it. I desperately want this game to do well. And you've got to take it seriously. Because if it does come out bug-ridden, and if it does come out with the awful control system without the ability to switch to pad function, then the PC crew are very, very unforgiving. The gaming and the MMO marketplace is very, very unforgiving, and they will crucify you. They will absolutely crucify you. There are so many good MMORPGs out there on the marketplace at the moment. If they don't like yours, they will go to another. They will go to Star Wars, they will go to Final Fantasy, they will go to the World of Warcraft, they will go to WildStar, they'll go wherever, but they will leave yours. Especially if you're asking for a decent amount of money for a subscription with also a microtransaction model tagged on top of that. I think they're setting themselves up for colossal failure by this. Pick one. Pick one. Pick microtransactions, pick subscription base, but don't throw both of them into the marketplace at the same time when you're trying to establish a foothold in the MMORPG marketplace. Now, The Elder Scrolls has a great, big, loyal support and following behind it. I'm one of those people, and I want to support this game. But can I justify that? That's the question. Is this going to be the next great MMO to rule them all? The simple answer is, I don't think so. I really don't think so. And I'm not trying to hate on them for the sake of hating. I've tried to be as objective and as honest as I possibly can be. There are just too many things, to me, that aren't sorted yet. Whether or not they're rushing to get the game out, I don't know. But it just feels as if they just took their time a little bit more, stuck this into a more intensive beta testing process where you can get a lot more people on the client with the latest build and actually sort through your bugs, then this could be a very, very good MMO RPG to play. But if they don't, and they release it with all these bugs, half-hearted, awful, awkward control system, no pad functionality for the PC, excluding them from that, then they're going to find themselves in a dreadfully, dreadfully poor situation very, very quickly indeed. People won't pay a subscription fee for something like that. They need to justify where the money's going to go, especially if they're one of the 7.6 million subscribers, 7.8 million subscribers to the World of Warcraft. Because that's where a lot of their subscription money would be going right now. So, all in all, it's a positive and a negative with this game. And that's not good enough. There needs to be way, way, way more positives than negatives. But unfortunately, they seem to balance themselves out all too quickly. I think ZeniMax are up against it. I really do. I think they're up against it. They've got one of the greatest franchises, especially for RPG fans, at their fingertips. They've got to treat that with the respect that it deserves. The game looks great. There's no denying that. The customization is very good. But you've got bugs, you've got an awful control system, you've got a subscription plus microtransaction model. I worry, is what I'm going to say. I worry for the Elder Scrolls Online. I do, and that's really sad. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed the vid. Please do like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook and also twitch.tv/heel versus babyface for live streaming. And I shall be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care everybody. Bye bye.